That's how you know you're a big deal, is when you get to be on this side. Do you have the clicker or is it in there?
You just click it. How do you just
Yeah,
go?
the forward button.
Where's the music? Oh, no.
These seats get deeper and deeper.
I know, seriously.
I feel like I'm
I completely agree. Okay, end of the music. Good evening, everyone. This is a meeting of the Transportation Subcommittee. Purpose of the meeting is to meet regarding the closure of the Pawtucket Street Bridge. Madam Clerk, could you please call the roll?
Counselor Elliott?
Here.
Counselor Conway?
Here.
Counselor Samaras? Two present.
Two present. Thank you. Let me also recognize City Councilor John Drinkwater, who has joined us, along with the city manager, transportation engineer, the DPW commissioner, and acting engineer, Mr. Gleason. So thank you for joining us. Meeting was kind of called somewhat impromptu as a result of the unexpected closure of the Pawtucket Street Bridge, complete closure. People at home perhaps know that the outbound lane was open while the inbound, or vice versa. One of the lanes was closed, so there was only outbound traffic. But since that time, there was a loss of, I don't know, an 80-foot piece of concrete. So long story short, I got many complaints naturally as a result of the bridge being completely shut down, traffic being rerouted through other corridors in the city. So with that, I did reach out to State Representative Tom Golden, who is a state rep for that particular area, who reached out to Mass DOT to let them know, and it wasn't to circumvent you, Madam Manager, or your administration. It was just out of frustration that day. I know you have reached out. I certainly know that you know these folks, but it was out of a sense of urgency, as it continues to be. But with that, I don't want to delay. I know that the Commissioner of Public Works, Ms. Clancy, and the Transportation Engineer have a presentation. So thank you for coming on kind of short notice. I did just ask Angela to post that last week. Thank you, Madam Clerk. So with that, can we, because I'd like to report this out next Tuesday on the progress, the status, and I think what was of interest before the meeting, you provided a handout, Ms. Clancy and Mr. Gleason, relative to the actual schedule. And while I'm sure the folks at home will not be pleased to hear that it's going to be very difficult to expedite this schedule, short of it'll cost more money, which we don't have. And secondly, well, I'll let the engineers say it, but in layman's term, it's a lateral build, so there's many utilities that have to be relocated, and it's a step-by-step process. It's not, you can't start building one aspect of it while the other one, maybe some concrete is curing. So with that, I'm sorry, Madam Manager, did you want to, I'd like to recognize you first.
Yeah. No, thank you, Mr. Chairman, and to the members of the subcommittee. Yes, the commissioner, as well as the interim city engineer and the traffic engineer are here to give an update. We have had almost daily conversations with MassDOT, who is the one who's manning this project that is part of the Tiger project. It is complicated, but right now there still are unanswered questions, though the project is on time and is moving forward. But I will, with permission, have the commissioner take it from here to update the subcommittee exactly as to where we stand today after this essentially collapse that happened out there.
Collapse, that's the word. Thank you. As I mentioned, I don't know, sometimes squeaky wheel gets the grease, and as I've learned, even if we can get more attention, it's not certain that we can expedite the construction of the bridge, which will go into greater detail, it's kind of frustrating, particularly those folks that live in Pawtucket that have to come over every single day. So, and then that affects the people in the Highlands because it's kind of gridlock over there. So with that, why don't we go through the presentation, and then I'm sure we'll have many questions, and we'll bring this report before the full city council next Tuesday.
Thank you. So we do have before you tonight just a few slides to highlight the update on the Pawtucket Street Bridge at Pawtucket Canal. As was mentioned, this is part of the Tiger Bridge Replacement Program, which is 5 bridges throughout the city. And this project is really being led by Mass DOT. So this bridge is really a 2-phase bridge. Phase 1 is under construction right now. And is in a demoed phase, and they're working on the substructure, on the abutments, and then they were just getting ready to build steel up. And current completion is this fall, September 2020 is the completion. And then after they would complete that phase, we would shift traffic, because there is a goal to maintain outbound traffic and inbounding at Broadway. And that has been the plan all along, up until recently. And so phase two would shift to the other side of the bridge, and that would be completed in April 2020. Just in terms of April 2022. And as far as, it's a very complex project in that there's many utilities, so the utilities have to be relocated from one side to the other side. And then building the steel up, putting the deck in. There's cofferdam installation just to hold back water and to create a dry condition as they're installing the substructure components of the bridge. So
Could I interrupt you
Sure.
because you explained something to me before the meeting, which I think would be important for viewers. This is a complete rebuild of that bridge, meaning, again, in layman's terms, it's not just it's pilings, it's construction in the water.
Correct, right. We have construction in the water. Some of these bridges have more of just a superstructure replacement. This is more of a full replacement in that it's superstructure replacement. That's what you see when you drive by. But really, right now, we're in the water doing work to the substructure and installing piles, working on the abutment and wing walls. So it is really a bridge replacement for this particular bridge out of the 5 bridges as the TIGA program. So up until, recent, it was February 10th that there was a collapse, and John Gleason is going to provide an update I think it's important just to inform everyone of what that collapse was, and we reacted immediately, shut down the road to understand, what was the severity of that collapse, and Mass DOT came in, immediately did inspections, and we are, as the manager had mentioned, that we are talking daily, really since this collapse, just to understand how to move forward. And right now, just so we have utilities are really a driver, and that we can't just, one question I think that came up during this process was, could we just if we have to shut down the road, can we just shut off everything and then just do the whole bridge at one time, one phase? And that is tricky just because the utilities have to be moved. And so just with the utilities and also the pedestrians, that is a common use for, especially between campuses, South Campus, North Campus. There's a lot of pedestrians, and the detour for that would be about a mile long. So just looking right now at pedestrians and utilities, right now we're just looking still as a potentially phased approach, phase 1 and phase 2. But I'll turn it over to John Gleason. This shows the stage 1 right now, and shows the left side of the slide shows the bridge that was intact, and everyone was driving over, and then on the right side is where the bridge is under construction. And I'll hand this over to John because he will explain, more details of that collapse that occurred on February 10th.
Okay, it's actually the left side that's under construction right now, on the left side of this slide. So the next step for this bridge project is those 3 beams that are on the left side, for those to be installed. That way, then everything else can be moved over, the utilities, the bridge deck can be placed. On the right side is the old portion of the bridge. What you can see in the middle, it's a little faint. It shows the Jersey barriers that exist for the traffic. There's about an 8 to 10 inch section in that middle piece of the old bridge. That's what had failed and fell into the canal. And that occurred around either on or before 9:40 a.m. On February 10th. And if we go to the next slide, that's what we saw at around 10 o'clock on that Monday morning. So it's just a strip of concrete from where they saw cut a joint across the bridge, and then it failed where some weaker concrete was above the beams. What ultimately happened was this prompted emergency inspections from the MassDOT inspection team. They came out, spent several days looking at the concrete and all the structural components of the bridge, and they determined that the concrete that you can see on the right-hand side of that picture was unsatisfactory. So they deemed it necessary that the bridge should be closed to vehicular traffic. There was also, on the top flange of that beam, there was some weak points as well. So they erred on the side of caution and decided to close the bridge.
Councilor Conway?
Thank you. I just have a couple of questions. What are they saying was the cause of that collapse?
Without further testing, I think it would be hard with the inspection report to actually pinpoint exactly what caused it. There's a number of things that could have caused that piece of concrete to fail.
Right.
Well, they essentially closed it because of the poor quality of the
Quality
concrete
was,
Right.
was the,
throughout the rest of the structure.
The,
Okay.
how often and who, just for the public here, how often are these bridges examined? And who does it?
MassDOT, this particular bridge was scheduled to be inspected again in April. So this was on a yearly inspection
A
schedule.
yearly inspection. Now, the thing that I'm a little confused with, if it was so bad that a chunk of it fell off, this is not these bridges have been around for many years. And they're built to be there for many years. And yet, it collapsed. And what happened last year when they examined this? To me, I don't quite understand why they wouldn't have seen the problem at that point, and then to address the situation, or the year before, whatever it may be. And all of a sudden, it gets to the point where it collapsed, and they say it's not safe. I'm not an engineer. I can go out now and say, I don't think it's safe because it collapsed. I think anybody could say that. The thing that makes me nervous is all the other bridges that we have. Can you address that? And I hate to put you on the spot on that, but to me, it just isn't, it's not passing the test here for me, as far as I'm concerned. And again, I'm not saying you, I'm just saying, why wasn't this, do you understand what I'm saying? Why wasn't this taken care of and acknowledged and fixed and pointed out to us last year, the year before, whatever it may be?
Sure, I can try to answer that. I mean, I think we very much knew that this bridge had to be replaced, and we really were, this bridge was in a deteriorated state, and so we were headed to, we were in the midst of bridge replacement. On the annual inspection, I think so it was last April it was inspected, if there were any deficiencies noted, there already is a bridge weight restriction, but I can't speak exactly as to what caused this failure, but the construction itself it was just by, the bridge is really, the decking has been removed on one half of the bridge, so that might have made it more apparent to the inspectors that came out, because I guess they can see more. It's a visual inspection, and so it's really also based on what they can see. And so I think here, just because of the construction we're in the midst of the construction, they could see more deterioration. In a year ago, where the bridge deck hadn't been removed, it wasn't visible to them.
Thank you for that explanation. When they go and they inspect a bridge, is there a list a checklist, or are there recommendations, or do they point out that there are specific issues involved with that bridge at that time?
There's a very detailed inspection checklist and form, and a very protocol. I can't speak on an exact protocol, what they follow.
Right.
That's something that Mass DOT could speak, but they have protocol that they follow. It's a standard bridge inspection form. They do run tests on it.
On this situation last year, what did they say was wrong with it last year? Do you know off the top?
I don't have. I'd
Okay.
have to go back and check. I mean, I think it was the bridge restriction, the weight restriction that existed was still in place.
Okay.
Beyond that, there were no other. I mean, at that time, they did not recommend shutting down the bridge.
Okay. I thank you for your explanations on it. I'm just concerned now, other bridges. And because I know that's a logical question people are gonna ask, is, are other bridges safe? And, you know, is it when they work on it, now all of a sudden they find that there's something wrong with it? I'm not sure why they couldn't have perhaps detected it prior to it.
So I've been here long enough to realize this bridge has been neglected for decades. It has had load restrictions on it for as long as I can tell. And this goes back to it, and this is kind of the bigger picture with Boot and L. You know, it's quite interesting that we've gone through this. I want to say it was 5 or 6 years ago when we applied for the Tiger Grant and got the money, but this international corporation would barely meet the minimum restrictions, Councilor Conway, and this was this bridge, I can't tell you how long this bridge was closed, one side or the other. This is not the first time. So, you know, the fact that we took all the bridges over and now they decided to bail on the city and they sold the operation out is, to me, speaks volumes. But that being said, the reason why this bridge was closed, maybe the question is, why was one lane even open? I suppose because of the magnitude, the volume of traffic that we have, but maybe we can get a report of that, the last bridge inspection report, that presumably and hopefully it reflected that it was safe with minimum load, no 2 tons, no 4 tons, no, I don't know what the tonnage is, but I think that'd be helpful.
Sure, we can get that. I mean, I do know that
By the way,
last,
there are reports on all the bridges, because I remember going through this exercise for the Rock Bridge when, you know, all the plates had to be replaced on the surface, which we're approaching that point again.
sure, and I guess just to clarify that when they do issue a bridge inspection report, if they do recommend a closure, an example is, you know, the Beaver Brook at Beaver Street Bridge, it's in the report, but they also send a notice to us, and they often follow up with an email or a phone call too, because it's something that's more imminent and needed. So in addition to just a report, we also, there's immediate communication with Mass DOT.
Right, same thing happened with the University Bridge. Shut it down. Okay. All set.
I guess just to move on in the presentation, so this was the Mass DOT advisory that was issued, and so I think that is available on the city website. That's been sent through social media, and then just a picture of the closure. I think, so Natasha can also speak a little more to implementing the closure. I think we're still making some tweaks right now, just if there's any signage. I mean, the closure and detour does work, but just to see if there's any added details that we need to implement. But I'll hand it over to Natasha.
Thanks, Christine. Yes, so obviously there was one lane of traffic, outbound traffic on the bridge, which is now no vehicular traffic is allowed on the bridge. Pedestrian and bike traffic is still allowed. The detour that's in place, you can see on the screen right now, takes you down. You continue on School Street and go around on Broadway and then back to Pawtucket. And that's been a real congestion issue, I think, as everyone is aware, even when one lane of traffic was open. The city electrician and I have been working on adjusting signal timings throughout this area throughout the course of this project to try and get traffic to flow a little bit better. As soon as the bridge closed, we had another conversation about it. He made some adjustments at Broadway and Wilder, which is helping pull traffic through a little bit better. We will continually monitor. Now, this is winter break, so traffic is a little light right now. We anticipate Monday or Tuesday making some more tweaks because there are a number of lights that we can, while they are not all coordinated, we can make adjustments and add, you'd be surprised how adding 10 seconds of green time in one direction or another can really help the traffic flow. Obviously, we'll be cutting back on the green time coming from the bridge up to Pawtucket and School because really very little traffic will be coming from that direction. There is a grid smart traffic camera at this location, which means that there's a camera that has a 360-degree view of the intersection. When traffic accrues in one direction, it can go to max recall or extend the green time for that approach. And that seems to be working pretty well right now. Again, this is winter break. We're not seeing, max traffic right now.
Which intersection is this with the smart
I'm
camera?
talking about the Pawtucket and School Street intersection right now, which
Right.
is,
There's a smart camera there?
there is a grid smart camera there, yes, and that camera feeds information to the traffic controller and enables, there's a program within the controller that enables it to add green
Right.
time when, for instance, when traffic is backing up on Pawtucket Street. The other thing that we're in the process of doing is tweaking some of the signage. There are a number of those approaches have 2 lanes and have like a right lane, must turn right, where they can't turn right. So we're going to be covering some of those and maybe putting in additional signage. It'll take a little while for us to get the appropriate signage up. So for members of the motoring public, when they approach that intersection, be conscious of potentially unexpected merging traffic. We'll try to get that accomplished as quickly as possible and have communicated with the contractor for MassDOT about making some adjustments to the signage. I would say if people are experiencing, people generally let me know when they're experiencing difficulties getting through areas of the city. If people are noticing they're not getting enough green time on a particular approach, they can submit an email through the city website that will come directly to me, and the city electrician and I can go to the traffic cabinet and adjust the green times. So we understand this is going to be difficult for people living in this area and for people trying to get through. We'll do our best to move traffic as much as possible, appreciate people's patience and understanding. As the DPW commissioner mentioned, right now the project is on schedule to have the new side of the bridge open in September of 2020. So we will have this sort of difficult traffic condition through that point, assuming everything stays on schedule. Hopefully come September of 2020, we will reopen the outbound traffic, and that should help alleviate some of the congestion. And I think that's really all I had to say, if anyone has any questions.
No, it's the best news that we can ask for under the conditions, in my opinion. So I do like the idea of people can send an email to the website, because motorists who travel on a regular basis know the times best. It's good to know you're trying to signal as well, the time, all the signals. I did have a question. So 2020, one lane will reopen, outbound, inbound?
Yeah, so it will continue to be the outbound lane.
Outbound lane.
And then we'll continue the diversion off Pawtucket Street up Broadway and then back up School.
Okay.
Yeah. So what it was before the collapse happened and the closure.
Okay, so we got a couple of more months, March, April, May, June, when school gets out. That definitely, not only the college,
Yes.
but the middle school in that particular area. Okay, I don't have anything else. Councilor Drinkwater? Councilor Conway? Well, I thank you for the explanation. Any updates would be appreciated. The good news is that nobody was injured and we didn't compromise public safety. The flip side is a lot longer delay time. Thank you for working on this. You and I spoke about there is a handicap spot that maybe because I travel through that corridor frequently, even having those 2 lanes, the left hand, the left, I guess, coming inbound. Most of the traffic goes left, but in the meantime, there is a fair amount that goes straight down through Broadway. I don't know if you evaluated any other traffic intersections as a result of this closure. Is it?
So there was a significant issue at like the Walker and Broadway, where the 4-way stop is, where traffic was backed up to that location.
Right.
We made some timing adjustments at School and Broadway, and that seems to have helped with that situation.
Sure.
We can certainly look at the parking along Broadway and see if there are, even if people could not be parked there during the peak hours, that would be very helpful.
I agree.
So that might be something we can evaluate and talk to business owners and residents along that stretch. Because essentially, once you get to School and Broadway, the congestion is relieved. But that there is a pretty significant pinch point from Walker to school along Broadway. That's really where the congestion is happening.
Okay, can you just real briefly go through the utilities and the length of, so that they're literally being relocated from one side to the next, so are they being relocated now to one section, and then once that section is complete, or are they going from one side to the next? When you say utilities, we're talking
This slide.
water, gas, not.
Overhead, and I believe, I actually have it right here. We can go back a couple of slides. Right here, sorry, it is hard to read, but there's an existing 20-inch water main. There's
That's the existing water main that will be relocated onto this side. So the steel,
Okay, how big is that? Was that a 10-inch water line?
that's a 20-inch water main.
That's a 20-inch water main? Okay,
And then there's a 6-inch gas on that side. There's electrical conduit you can see here, telephone conduit. Those are now currently overhead.
okay.
Need to be cut back, relocated.
And what's the other one? Is that
That's
gas?
6-inch gas.
Gas. Okay,
So before those utilities can be moved, the steel on that current phase has to be erected, and that's something that is still underway or hasn't
Okay.
happened yet.
okay, I understand. Okay, thank you. I don't have any more questions. Thank you. I think the map will be helpful. People know we'll bring the report in. It's just going to take some time, and we're doing everything that we can to try to mitigate the traffic. Okay. Anything further? Thank you. Appreciate everybody's time. We'll bring this in next Tuesday, and I'm sure there might be some questions, but I think the fact that, you're adding some green seconds to try to move the traffic through both in, peak time in the morning and peak in the afternoon is helpful. Okay, motion to adjourn by Council Conway, seconded by myself. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Any opposed? That motion carries. This meeting stands adjourned. Thank you.